The second you step into a room, everyone starts scanning you. They clock your face, your tone, your pauses. Most people do it on autopilot, guided by fear, desire, insecurity. Machiavelli did it with intent, precision. He understood that power isn't just in what you say or do. It's in how quickly you can see through someone else. If you want to influence, you must first understand. If you want to protect yourself, you must predict. If you want to dominate, you must read a person before they even realize they've been seen. Here's the core truth. The surface almost never tells the story. A smile can be theater. A handshake can be a threat. A compliment can be a pressure test. So instead of relying on vibes, Machiavelli built tools. 14 psychological tactics you can use to size up anyone's character, motives, and weak points in minutes. This isn't about guessing. It's about pattern recognition you can use in real time. Tactic 1. Watch how they treat the invisible. Forget how they treat you. That's the easiest thing in the world to fake. Pay attention to how they treat the person who doesn't matter. The waiter, the receptionist, the intern, the driver, the +1. Power has a way of loosening masks, and small pockets of safety reveal real nature. If someone is courteous only when it benefits them, they're showing you exactly how they'll act once your value drops. Respect toward the powerless is a truer signal of character than kindness toward peers, because there's no payoff for faking it. Tactic 2. Use silence and let the mask slide. Insecurity hates quiet. Most people rush to fill silence not because they love talking, but because they're afraid of being seen without noise to hide behind. You don't have to interrogate anyone. Simply talk less than they do. Let pauses breathe. Hold a beat longer than is comfortable. That empty space isn't empty, it's pressure. Under gentle pressure, people try to impress, they overshare, and they flash their fears. You'll hear the neediness, the resentment, the ambition. You'll see what they want you to believe and what they're trying to bury. Tactic 3. Offer nothing and watch what happens. This one is cold and unbelievably revealing. Offer no approval, no special attention, no immediate benefits. Just be present, calm, unreadable. People tune their behavior to what they can extract. When you stop feeding them anything, their default programming appears. Do they cool off? They were warm only for gain. Do they push harder? They're wired for external validation. Do they stay steady? That's emotional control, and that kind of person can be formidable. The less you give, the more they tell you without realizing it. Tactic 4. Break the script. Some folks rehearse their entire persona. The charm, the vulnerability, even the honesty. It's a performance designed to manage your perception. The only way to see past it is to interrupt it. Ask an unexpected question. Answer a joke with quiet. Meet flattery with thoughtful suspicion. Change the subject when they're building momentum. That stumble you create, the micro-glitch, reveals the unscripted self. There's always a seam where the costume ends. Find it, and you'll glimpse what's underneath. Tactic 5. Test loyalty with tiny losses. Don't wait for a big betrayal to learn the truth. Create a small, controlled no. Decline a minor favor. Delay a response. Skip the praise you usually give. Then observe. Do they stay respectful? Or do they sulk, gossip, pull back? Real loyalty shows up when expectation isn't met. The smallest denial often surfaces the largest truth. People who can handle no with composure are rare and worth watching for the right reasons. Tactic 6. Track attention, not words. Words lie. Attention doesn't. While they're talking, Watch what they're watching. Do their eyes drift toward high-status people? They're status-oriented. Do they chronically ignore low-status folks? They worship advantage. Do they check their phone while engaged with you? You're a placeholder, not a priority. Do they subtly mirror your expressions? They're angling for favor. Attention is investment. Where it goes reveals the real hierarchy in their mind, what matters, who matters, and whether you're actually in the frame. Tactic 7. Float a fake weakness. Offer a small, believable flaw that cost you nothing. I tend to overthink. I'm too trusting at first. I'm not great with confrontation. Then wait. If they weaponize it later, mock it, twist it, use it to push you, they're opportunistic. If they leave it alone, they're either respectful or cautious. If they respond with a genuine vulnerability of their own, they want connection. By using a decoy weakness, you trigger a true reaction without risking anything real. Tactic 8. Make them wait. Nothing exposes entitlement faster than time. Delay a text. Be vague about scheduling. Take a beat longer to deliver something. Entitled people panic, guilt trip, or go passive-aggressive. Patient people breathe and adjust. Resilience matters more than enthusiasm, because the impatient are the first to sour and the first to turn toxic when control slips. Time reveals temperament better than any personality test. Tactic 9. Study who they copy. Everyone models someone consciously or not. The tone, the style, the posture, the references. The idol tells you the ambition. If they mirror the powerful, they crave control. If they mirror the popular, they want attention. If they mirror the virtuous, they seek moral superiority. Find the silhouette they're tracing, and you'll know what prize they're secretly chasing. Tactic 10. Trigger envy and watch the flicker. Casually mention a recent win, a compliment you received, or an opportunity that came your way. Then watch their face. Is the smile too tight? Do they deflect instantly? Do they downplay it or one-up you? That micro-signal is envy, and envy is dangerous because it quietly precedes sabotage. It seldom shouts. It flickers. Once you catch that flicker, you can never unsee it. Adjust accordingly. Tactic 11. Ask what they hate. What people love is easy to perform. What they hate is harder to disguise. Try, what kind of behavior drives you crazy? Or, what kind of people do you struggle with? Often, their answer is a mirror. I hate arrogance can mask hidden arrogance. I can't stand liars, sometimes hides a skilled liar. I hate weakness may be someone terrified of being seen as weak. In judgment, there is confession. Listen for the shadow talking. Tactic 12. Note what breaks eye contact. Eye contact is power, but the break is truth. Bring up money, status, shame, a past failure, or power dynamics. Watch the flinch, the eye twitch, the downward glance, the sudden blink. The eyes are the emergency exit for suppressed emotion. Whatever topic makes their gaze flee marks a fault line. You don't need to push it, just map it. Knowing where the ground cracks is enough to move safely. Now, understand this. The last two tactics flip the frame. They're not about observing others. They're about controlling how others observe you. So their real operating system steps into the light. Instead of chasing answers, you create conditions that invite truth to walk to you. That's where Machiavelli lived. Less asking, more provoking. Less trust-building, more tension-shaping. When you do it right, people tell you exactly who they are without realizing they have. Tactic 13. Become their mirror. Subtly echo their tone, posture, and cadence, not as a gimmick, but as a soft reflection. Mirror casual with casual. Mirror certainty with calm certainty. Mirror hesitance with measured hesitance. Most won't notice, but their instincts will. If they escalate when you mirror their chill, they were performing dominance. If they retreat when you mirror confidence, their swagger was a shield. If they turn superior when you mirror insecurity, you've found a quiet bully. The more they shift when their own energy returns to them, the more they were acting in the first place. Tactic 14. Lead with respect, then cut with precision. People expect judgment, so they armor up, excuses, filters, spin. Start with genuine respect. Point to something real, their intelligence, a hard-won achievement, a sharp observation. Let them feel seen and competent. Then ask the surgical question, the one that slips past defenses. You clearly think things through. What fear sits behind your biggest decisions? You seem incredibly self-assured. When did you first learn to fake confidence? You're good at reading others. How do you tell when someone's reading you? Respect opens the door. The right question removes the mask. That's the psychological layer, fast, precise, actionable. Next comes strategy. Once you can read someone, how do you play the board without them ever noticing you're the one setting the pieces? Now that you know how to read people psychologically, the next layer begins. Reading them strategically. Machiavelli didn't study people for curiosity's sake. He studied them as if they were maps, terrains of power, leverage, and risk. Every habit, every fear, every blind spot was a tool that could be used, influenced, or protected against. When you know what someone hides, you don't just understand them. You hold the steering wheel. This isn't about destruction or manipulation for sport. It's about influence. Subtle, quiet, precise influence. The kind that directs outcomes without anyone realizing they're being guided. If someone fears abandonment, distance becomes your leverage. If they crave admiration, disapproval makes them chase your respect. If they thrive on control, unpredictability is your weapon. If they're hiding malice, you already know where to strike or how to let them destroy themselves. At this level, human behavior becomes a chessboard. Every emotion is a move, every silence a position, every overreaction a tell. Machiavelli knew this better than anyone, that power flows to the person who observes without speaking, who predicts without announcing, who acts without warning. He never labeled people out loud. He labeled them internally. He didn't say, "He's a narcissist," or "She's insecure." He watched, categorized, adjusted, quietly, because labeling kills power. The moment you name someone's flaw, they resist it. But if you never say it, if you simply act as though you already know, your moves go unnoticed and your control goes unquestioned. Here are a few strategic archetypes Machiavelli used in his mind. The masked pleaser. This is the one who craves approval, who showers you with praise and attention. They seem kind until you deny them something. The moment approval dries up, they turn bitter or manipulative. With them, praise is your tool. Use it sparingly. Give it, withdraw it, and watch how their loyalty oscillates. Control the approval, and you control the pleaser. The silent climber. They appear loyal, soft-spoken, professional, but they're always scanning for power vacuums. They respect strength, not kindness. With them, distance is essential. Keep them close enough to observe, far enough to limit access. They don't betray upward, only sideways or down. Make sure you're neither. The fragile genius. Brilliant, insightful, creative, and emotionally volatile. Their mind can build empires or burn them down overnight. To use their strength, you must manage their instability. Give them purpose and praise in small, precise doses. Don't challenge their identity. Redirect their energy toward something that benefits you both. The loud defender. The one who over-explains, overreacts, over-justifies. They're hiding guilt or fear. They talk to convince themselves, not you. When they speak, listen for what they avoid saying. When they defend too hard, you've found their soft spot. Their outbursts aren't random. They're confessions disguised as performances. Machiavelli didn't reveal these classifications aloud. He let people show him exactly how they wanted to be handled. And once he understood their patterns, he applied one golden rule. Observe how they handle no. Nothing exposes character faster than rejection. You can test this in any environment. A friendship, a business deal, a relationship. Say no to something they expect. A favor, an invitation, a compliment. Your time. Then stand back and watch. If they stay calm, they're disciplined. If they lash out, they're ruled by ego. If they shift tone entirely, from charm to coldness, they were only playing a role. Rejection slices through persona. It reveals who they are beneath the performance. The wise learn more from a single denied request than from 100 friendly conversations. Next, detect who they're performing for. Every sentence, every gesture, every opinion is part of an unconscious campaign for approval. People don't just speak, they position. So the question is, who is their audience right now? Are they performing for you? Then they crave your validation. Are they performing for the group? They're asserting dominance. Are they performing for someone not present? Then that invisible person or archetype owns their loyalty. Watch their eyes. Watch who they glance at after they speak. Watch whose approval they check for, even subtly. The real target of their performance tells you where their power flows. And if it isn't you, don't try to outshine them. Redirect them. Quietly. Now notice what they brag about. And then look for the opposite. Someone who says, "I'm brutally honest," often hides manipulation behind selective truth. "I'm drama-free," usually a chaos magnet. "I always put others first," often controlling or resentful beneath the surface. Machiavelli believed that real strength never needs to shout. When someone emphasizes a virtue loudly, it's usually compensation. The louder the claim, the darker the shadow it's hiding. So, when you hear self-declared virtues, flip them like a coin. What's on the other side is usually closer to the truth. These insights aren't guesses. They're tactical data points, psychological fingerprints that sharpen your vision. Once you start recognizing them, people stop being mysteries and start becoming readable code. But there's a catch. The moment you can read everyone too clearly, something shifts in you. You risk detachment. You start to believe you're above them, smarter, colder, untouchable. That's the shadow side of perception. It's intoxicating. You begin controlling for sport, manipulating out of habit, predicting for pleasure. Machiavelli understood this danger well. The final transformation of a powerful mind is not into a manipulator, but into someone who knows exactly when to stop the game. The highest level of power isn't domination. It's disappearance. Walking away while still winning. Leaving the table with your dignity intact and your knowledge unspoken. Because when your insight becomes instinct, you no longer need to prove it. At that level, you don't think, "How do I read this person?" You simply see it. You enter a room and the map unfolds. Who's insecure? Who's posturing? Who's quietly powerful? Who's pretending not to notice you but already calculating their position? You've entered the final stage, where reading people isn't a skill anymore. It's reflex. But perception alone isn't power. It's the first half of the equation. The second half, the part Machiavelli mastered, is influence. How do you guide people without force? How do you make them move in the direction you want, while believing it was their idea all along? This is where psychological reading evolves into strategic manipulation, subtle, invisible, and devastatingly effective when used with precision. Let's begin with the first rule of invisible influence. If you want control, never make someone feel controlled. The key isn't confrontation, it's reflection. You mirror their desire, and then you redirect it. When you learn what a person wants, power, validation, security, freedom, don't oppose it. Reflect it back. The ambitious want to feel unstoppable. Complement their drive. The insecure crave reassurance. Validate their effort. The dominant need control. Acknowledge it openly. When you mirror someone's desire, they feel safe, seen, understood. And when people feel seen, their guard drops. That's when you make your move not to force, but to steer. Once they trust you as a reflection, you can link their desire to your goal. If they want recognition, show them how your plan gives them more of it. If they want power, position your objective as the path to their advancement. They'll follow you, thinking it was their choice. That's how you win without a single argument, by turning their hunger into your direction. Next, Machiavelli used what he called strategic vulnerability. He knew people love to talk about themselves, especially when they feel they're helping you. So he'd reveal a small, controlled flaw. I never fully trust my instincts at first, or I get too absorbed in my work sometimes, or I'm not great at managing people like you are. It's bait, disguised as honesty. It makes them feel superior, generous, helpful, and trusted. That emotional cocktail lowers their guard completely. They begin revealing secrets, insecurities, strategies. Not because you pried, but because they feel safe and slightly above you. A mind that feels safe will talk. A mind that feels superior will talk honestly. And when you make someone feel both, you've opened the vault. Next up, the half-secret technique. Give them half of a truth to create a false sense of equality. People trust most when they think trust is mutual. Machiavelli would offer a partial confession. I learned the hard way not to rely on people I thought I could trust, or I used to be too nice. It almost ruined me. It sounds real, but it's strategically incomplete. They, in turn, reveal something deeper, thinking it's a fair exchange. You've traded a puzzle piece for their whole picture. This is how you make others talk themselves open, while you give away nothing real. And yet, there's still another layer, the one that makes influence last. Because once you've earned someone's trust, once they define you as safe, admired, or equal, you must take the final step. Let them define themselves. We'll explore that next. Let them define themselves and then use their definition. Here's one of Machiavelli's most genius insights. If you want to control someone, never define who they are. Let them do it. Because when people declare who they believe themselves to be, they also hand you the script for how to control their behavior. They'll say things like, I'm the kind of person who values loyalty above all else. I hate when people waste time. I don't let emotions control me. Those sentences might sound like random personality statements, But to Machiavelli, they were blueprints. Once someone defines themselves, they become attached to that definition. They need to be consistent with it. You can then frame your requests, suggestions, or objections to fit within that identity. And they'll follow through because doing otherwise would mean betraying themselves. For instance, you're someone who values loyalty. I trust you'll handle this. Or, I know how much you hate inefficiency. This shortcut will be perfect for you. You're not persuading them. You're reaffirming their identity and quietly steering it toward your purpose. It's psychological Aikido. You use their momentum, not your own force. Once you understand this principle, persuasion becomes unnecessary. You're not convincing. You're aligning. And when people believe they're being true to themselves, they stop resisting entirely. Next comes one of Machiavelli's coldest, yet most brilliant maneuvers. Create a reputation they must protect. Human beings fear loss far more than they crave gain. So, instead of chasing trust, give them something to lose. A reputation. Compliment them for qualities you want them to uphold before they've earned them. You might say, you're known for always keeping your word. People respect you because you stay out of petty conflicts. You're the one who always brings balance when things get tense. By saying this publicly, even subtly, you plant an identity they now feel pressure to maintain. If they act against it, they risk being seen as fake or weak. So, they unconsciously begin living up to the image you gave them. You've built a cage made of flattery, and they'll lock themselves inside it. This is how Machiavelli installed behavior without ever giving a command. He made people prisoners of their own need for consistency. Next tactic. Leak just enough information to guide perception. You don't always need to tell people what to think. Sometimes, all you need is to let them discover what you want them to believe. Drop a story about outmaneuvering a rival. Let them overhear a joke that shows your sharpness. Casually mention how you value loyalty or how you can spot manipulation from a mile away. These micro-leaks create a controlled illusion, a version of you they construct on their own. People trust conclusions they think they reach themselves. Once they believe they've figured you out, they stop analyzing. They settle into the role you've scripted for them without realizing it. And that's the trick. The moment someone stops questioning you, they become predictable. Now, let them win early so you can own the outcome later. One of Machiavelli's most ruthless strategies was to give others small victories. Let them think it was their idea. Let them feel like the leader, the problem solver, the visionary. Feed their ego with harmless wins while quietly engineering the real result to serve you. Because here's what he knew. People protect what they believe they built. They defend ideas they think are theirs. They stay loyal to the systems that validate their identity. So, let them write the first line of the story, as long as you control the ending. That's how you lead without appearing to lead. At this point, you're not reacting to people anymore. You're designing the environment around their behavior. You're not in their game, they're in yours. But the highest level of Machiavellian understanding isn't about others. It's about you. Because the more you can see through people, the more you're forced to face your own motives. There's a shadow in every mind that becomes too perceptive. The danger isn't that you'll fail to read people. It's that you'll stop feeling for them. When you start to read everyone like code, you risk becoming cold, detached, godlike in perspective, but hollow in humanity. That's the edge Machiavelli danced on, the line between clarity and cruelty. He knew that when power becomes easy, empathy becomes expensive. When you can manipulate at will, morality feels optional. But he also understood. The mind that loses empathy eventually loses leverage. Because control without restraint leads to collapse. The moment others realize they're being played, even subtly, the empire falls. So, the true mastery isn't endless control. It's knowing exactly when to stop, when to disappear before the game consumes you, when to walk away while still ahead. At the highest level, you stop playing. You move through the world like water, reading without trying, influencing without effort, leaving no fingerprints. Your perception becomes instinct. You no longer chase reactions. They simply unfold in front of you. You enter a room, and instantly the patterns reveal themselves. Who's pretending to be confident, but trembling inside? Who's quietly powerful and doesn't need to prove it? Who's watching you, not because they admire you, but because they fear what you might see? At that point, you've reached the level Machiavelli called invisible control. You're no longer reading people. You're reading reality, the subtle dance of power, fear, desire, and ambition that governs every interaction. And from that vantage point, you begin to see what few ever do. Most people don't act from free will. They act from compulsion, the need to protect an image, win validation, avoid pain, or chase power. The person who understands these compulsions doesn't need to push. They just need to position. That's the true art. Power without visible pressure, influence without the need to speak, dominance disguised as understanding. But Machiavelli's genius didn't stop there. Once he mastered perception and influence, he studied how to make people act in alignment with his goals while believing they were acting for themselves. This is where manipulation becomes architecture, where every move, every silence, every accident serves a calculated purpose. And it all starts with 3 subtle but devastating techniques. Letting people believe they're free while you're quietly steering their choices, using controlled vulnerability to open emotional doors, and shaping reputation to install behavior loops that serve your interests. We've covered how to mirror, how to plant ideas, how to test loyalty. But these 3 tools create something more powerful: sustainable control. Let's go deeper. The first rule of sustainable influence: give them freedom with boundaries. If you want someone to follow, never make them feel trapped. Set the stage so every choice they make leads where you wanted them to go anyway. Give them options, all favorable to you. Offer them autonomy, all within a framework you designed. When they feel like they're choosing, their ego defends your plan. They'll argue for it, protect it, even fight to keep it, because they believe it's theirs. The art isn't in taking control. It's in making control feel like freedom. That's the invisible thread Machiavelli pulled in every court, every alliance, every betrayal. He didn't demand loyalty, he engineered it. In the next part, we'll uncover how he used strategic empathy and illusion of choice to guide even his enemies toward the outcomes he wanted, without them ever realizing it. Strategic empathy. This was Machiavelli's sharpest disguise. He understood that people don't open to kindness, they open to understanding, and true understanding doesn't mean agreeing. It means reflecting their inner world back to them so precisely that they feel seen, even when they shouldn't trust you. He would listen, not to agree, but to gather intelligence. He studied tone, timing, phrasing, the rhythm of insecurity behind confidence. Then, when he spoke, he didn't confront or correct. He mirrored their emotions in a way that disarmed them completely. For example, if someone said, "I just can't stand people who lie," Machiavelli might reply softly, "That makes sense. You value honesty. It's what gives you control in a world full of deception." In that moment, he wasn't agreeing. He was validating the motive behind their opinion. Validation makes people feel safe. Safety makes them predictable. Strategic empathy is not compassion. It's emotional leverage disguised as care. It's seeing the wound beneath the armor and deciding whether to press or protect it. The moment someone believes you understand them, they'll hand you their keys, their trust, their secrets, their self-image. And once you have those, you can move them anywhere you want. Because human behavior isn't driven by logic, it's driven by the desire to feel seen. The next layer of influence is what Machiavelli called the illusion of choice. He knew that power feels harsh when it's obvious, so he made his control invisible. He gave people two paths, both leading to his intended outcome. Imagine telling a rival, you can either support this plan and share the credit, or oppose it and risk losing influence. Whichever path they choose, you win. They feel independent, but the game is rigged. This is the essence of subtle manipulation, directing people through their own will. When people think they're rebelling, they're often still inside your structure. The trick isn't to remove their autonomy, it's to write the script that defines it. But Machiavelli also understood something even colder. To guide someone fully, you must occasionally let them win against you. Why? Because victory blinds. When people feel they've outsmarted you, they relax their guard. They trust you more, even as they underestimate you. That underestimation is power, because no one defends against a loss they don't see coming. He mastered this in courts, alliances, even friendships, appearing pliable, deferential, or harmless, until the exact moment when obedience turned into checkmate. He didn't mind being underestimated. He engineered it. Because while others chased dominance, he chased positioning. Dominance invites attack. Positioning ensures survival. Now let's turn to one of his most subtle arts, the calibration of respect. Respect, when used strategically, is a weapon sharper than contempt. People expect criticism. They prepare for judgment. What they never expect is admiration, especially from someone they can't read. So, Machiavelli began with respect. He complimented intelligence. He acknowledged achievements. He flattered precisely, never excessively, because genuine-sounding admiration lowers defenses faster than any argument. Then, in that softened state, he would drop the question that pierced through the ego. You're clearly decisive. What do you fear getting wrong the most? Or, you seem like someone who never hesitates. How do you know when to stop trusting your instincts? These weren't questions. They were psychological scalpels. And because they followed praise, people answered honestly. Without realizing, they just exposed their vulnerabilities. Machiavelli's brilliance lay not in cruelty, but in sequence. Admire, then analyze. Disarm, then dissect. Compliment, then cut. The rhythm created a loop of trust and exposure that no one could resist. Now, once you've gathered this much insight, once you've read someone's fears, mapped their motives, tracked their desires, you reach the most dangerous stage, influence without words. This is when you stop trying to convince altogether. You begin shaping perception through presence alone. You control the emotional atmosphere of the interaction, your tone, your pauses, your stillness. When you master calm silence, others fill it with confession. When you control your gaze, others adjust their posture. When you withdraw slightly, they lean in. Every movement becomes a signal, an unspoken test. This is the level where power stops being something you do and becomes something you are. Machiavelli believed that humans are emotional barometers. We sense, we react, we mirror energy before thought even enters. If you master your energy, you master the room. Stillness intimidates the restless. Composure attracts the chaotic. Detachment unnerves the insecure. He once wrote that the calmest man in the room always appears to know something others don't. That illusion, that quiet certainty, is the invisible crown. From here, you can begin to use what he called controlled unpredictability. If people think they can always read you, you lose leverage. Predictability breeds manipulation. They'll plan around you. So occasionally you must surprise. Shift rhythm. Delay answers. Reverse expectations. Respond to anger with warmth. To flattery with silence. To disrespect with kindness, or calculated indifference. The goal isn't chaos. It's tension. Predictability comforts others. Tension keeps them alert. And the alert are easier to guide because they're already emotionally engaged. Machiavelli wasn't just reading others. He was teaching them how to read him, and then changing the language mid-sentence. But beneath all this, there's one truth he never ignored. You cannot influence deeply if you haven't mastered your own reactions. If your emotions are visible, you've surrendered control. The greatest readers of others are always the most disciplined readers of themselves. That's why he emphasized composure over charm. Because charm wins the room, composure controls it. He practiced emotional invisibility. When insulted, he didn't react. When praised, he didn't glow. When ignored, he didn't chase. To the untrained eye, this looked cold. But it wasn't detachment. It was strategy. By being unreadable, he forced others to reveal themselves. The need to interpret him made people expose their desires, fears, and insecurities. He turned their curiosity into confession. And here's where the paradox of power appears. The moment you no longer need to prove power, you have it. The moment you stop needing to control becomes effortless. Because true Machiavellian mastery isn't about domination. It's about psychological gravity. The strong don't chase. They pull. So now, you've learned to read anyone instantly through silence, behavior, and reaction. Mirror and disarm through reflection. Influence through identity and illusion. Control perception without ever announcing control. But there's one final transformation left. The rarest skill Machiavelli ever taught. The point where all power, all perception, all strategy merge into something few ever reach. The art of vanishing powerfully. To know when to retreat, when to disappear from the board, and still have the world play by your rules. That's where we go next. The final form of power isn't about presence. It's about absence. Machiavelli understood that the most commanding figures in history weren't the ones who shouted the loudest, but the ones whose silence shaped entire rooms. True mastery lies not in forcing attention, but in making others feel your influence even when you're gone. To disappear strategically doesn't mean you vanish from the world. It means you retreat from emotional exposure. You stop being readable, predictable, or available on demand. You appear when it serves your intention, and you vanish when people expect you most. That unpredictability creates gravity. It makes others adjust their pace, their words, even their emotions around you. Because mystery is magnetic. When people can't decode you, they start imagining you. And what they imagine is always more powerful than what's real. Machiavelli called this the invisible crown, the authority that comes not from command, but from perception. When others start asking, "What is he thinking? Why hasn't she reacted? What is their next move?" You've already won, because their focus has shifted from themselves to you. You're no longer chasing control. You are control. But here's the paradox. To reach this level, you must no longer crave it. The power of disappearance comes only when you can walk away without needing to be seen, praised, or understood. The moment you can detach without resentment, influence without possession, and leave without fear, you transcend manipulation. You stop playing for attention and start moving with intention. Machiavelli believed that the ability to withdraw gracefully is rarer than the ability to conquer. Anyone can fight for power, only the few can abandon it at the peak of their strength. Because the man who can walk away still holding all his composure is the man who cannot be defeated. His silence speaks louder than threats. His absence cuts deeper than words. At this stage, you no longer rely on strategy. You become the strategy. You enter a room, and energy shifts. People lower their voices, measure their words, adjust their tone. You don't demand respect. It happens instinctively. Every glance, every pause, every refusal to overreact becomes a move. You've turned restraint into domination. Power, at its highest form, is invisible because it no longer competes. It simply is. When you no longer chase validation, the world starts to validate you. When you stop explaining yourself, people begin explaining you to others. And when you stop proving power, people begin to assume you have it. This is what Machiavelli meant by to win without being seen as the one pulling the strings. It's the art of controlled detachment, of shaping perception without exposure. You read people, guide them, even protect them, yet they believe they're acting on their own. That's not cruelty, that's precision. And yet, this final stage comes with one quiet warning. The colder you become, the more careful you must be not to lose your humanity. Because insight without empathy becomes tyranny. The goal isn't to manipulate endlessly, but to see clearly, and then choose when not to act. In the end, the ultimate power is restraint. The ability to know everything, say nothing, and still move everything forward. To observe without attachment. To influence without force. To disappear while still being felt. When you can do that, when your silence is louder than noise, when your absence commands more respect than your presence. You've reached what Machiavelli called the state beyond the game. Because the final move of every master strategist isn't domination. It's disappearance with victory intact. Leave the board and let the pieces keep moving exactly how you planned.